Are in Ein Yaakov, and we're starting a brand new Masechta. We're looking at the Gemara Shabbos. And what we're going to do in this Gemara is very simple. It's very interesting in that, first of all, we're going to start skipping a lot. Because unlike in Brachot, while there's much Midrash in the, or Agadata in Shabbat, is certainly not as concentrated as the last chapter of Brachot that we dealt with, which was basically every single page. Here we're going to be skipping. So we're going to go from, for instance, it goes from page 3 to page 9 to page 10. I mean, it really is.
Skipping through the actual Gemara, according to what Ein Yaakov actually recorded it.
Right, again, we're going for the Agadata.
Yeah, okay.
So when it comes to the Agadata, the stories of the Talmud, so then we want to be clear that it's... there's some halacha that we can derive from it. For instance, in the first one, we'll start right now, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It says, Amr le Rav Chia le Rav. So Rav Chia said to Rav, Bar Pachte, son of nobles, and which means son of Torah scholars, the Rashi explains. Lo aminalach, have I not told you, Kikai Rav, Bahai Mesechta, that when Rav is involved in one tractate of the Talmud, lo tishalib Masechta Chariti, do not ask him questions concerning another tractate. Why? Dilma lavadaite, for he may answer you incorrectly due to the fact that the other tractate may not be fresh in his mind. The Rabbi Gavra Rabbahu, for if not for the fact that Rabbi is a great man, Kasafte, it is conceivable that you would have caused him embarrassment. The Meshane Lach, Shenoya Delav Shenoya Lo. For he would possibly have given you an answer that was not a proper answer. And so it's interesting that again the Gemara, the Ein Yaakov will end with this statement: Ahashta mihad shapir Meshane Lach. In this instance, however, he answered you properly. Now, we don't go through the rest of the Gemara. Again, the Gemara stops. The Gemara does continue to say what his answer was, but that's not important to the Agadata. Okay? So, just to go through... Yeah, okay. And by the way, there's also no article on this. In other words, he doesn't comment more than they've already translated. So really, what is going on here? How many times have I been speaking and somebody says, or a teacher is speaking, or somebody else and said, it's not really on the subject, but, right? How many people do that? It's not really on the subject, but I want to ask blank. Well, I'm not in that subject. Why are you asking me that subject? So, and on top of that, you're going to ask me, imagine I'm teaching this, and suddenly... can I ask a question? Oh, it's on the Indian, right? It's on the matter? No, on Shabbos, can I do blank? You're asking me halacha in the middle of Agadat Tishir? No, or yes, whatever. My mind is on it. So as a result, I'm all fablunged.
Yeah.
How do you know that? It's for lunch. It translates certain things. You're all mixed up. I guess it's the best way you're going to say it. You're all for blunged. Somebody asked you a question, and you're not in the... That's the point. You're not in the Indian. So if I'm not in the Indian, if I'm not in the subject matter, and you ask me a question, something totally different, well, I may answer wrong. I may answer right. You may embarrass me cause me to say, you know what, I don't know, whatever. And so you're going to say, if you ask me, by the way, again, if you ask a guy like me, so the odds are I can say, I don't know, and I'm not going to be embarrassed, because I'm not seen by the world to be a gadol hador. I'm far from gadol hador. I'm the lowest guy on the totem pole. Okay, I'm not a giant of the generation, but can you imagine if you go to one of the giants and he's learning something, and suddenly you ask him a question and he would say, I don't know. That's an embarrassment to the poor guy. What are you doing? I mean, it's nice that he would say, I don't know, but it's an embarrassment. So here, Rav Chia is teaching Rav. He says, didn't I tell you, you can't ask a question out of the matter of what the Rebbe is teaching. If Rebbe is teaching this tractate, ask him on Shabbos. If he's learning Eruvin, ask him on Eruvin. You understand your point, right? You never ask outside of what you're learning. It's just not a smart thing. Because one, my knowledge isn't settled. It's not settled on that subject. So either I'm going to give you the wrong answer, or I'm going to say I don't know, or whatever the case is going to be. By the way, I've said this many times also. Rav Hershel Schechter from YU, he said that whenever anybody asks him a question, even if he knows the answer, he told us, you say, I'll get back to you in a few minutes. You hang the telephone up. And he said, even if you know what the answer is, it could be a simple answer. You still get the people used to, I'm not the shell answer man. Yeah, you can't call me and expect an answer like this. Yeah. I'm not Google. So and then he said, on top of that, you should also go to the halacha. You should also go look up the halacha, because it says that we're not allowed to answer a question if the Rebbe is in the room. Right? If my Rebbe is in the room and somebody asks a question, so I shouldn't be so arrogant as to answer in front of the Rebbe. And he said, who's our greatest Rebbe? The Shulchan Aruch. And the Shulchan Aruch is in our room. It's on our phones. It's everywhere. It's all over. So before you answer the question, you have to ask your Rebbe, namely Shulchan Aruch. You look it up, and then you make sure that what you're saying is right, and you call the person back in 2 minutes. That way the person realizes that, by the way, another thing is, can you imagine if you give me a call and I say, let me get back to you, what does it say about your question? Ooh, you had a good kasha. It makes you feel good. So I made you feel good. I get you used to not calling me and expecting me to know the answer like this. Again, I'm not Google.com. And you also get a respect for Torah, and I also get to look it up and make sure that I'm correct. So it's all a very important thing. But that's all from this Agadata. Like I said, it's a small little Agadata, but it's very, very powerful in getting across the message that we have to be careful with how we ask our questions. We have to be in the matter when you're asking the questions. Either that, or you have to say to the person when they're not in class or not giving the class, I'd like to ask you a question based upon this. And then again, the Rebbe, based upon what I was saying about Reb Schechter, he would say, let me get back to you. Okay, so that's one. Now we go to 9b2. You have to turn to 9b2. For you don't have to turn the page. 9b2, and we are at the bottom, I believe. Yes, we're at the bottom. Okay. The Mishnah taught, and this is all based upon the Mishnah, by the way. The Mishnah says, just for this you won't have, I'm just giving you the background. It says, lo yeshiv adam lifnei hasafar b'samuch lemincha. That a person should not sit in front, in other words, he shouldn't go for a haircut close to mincha until he davens. He has to daven first. Why? Because if you're sitting in the chair and the guy is going to be cutting your hair, well, what could happen is that Rashi says, Shema Yishkach v'liyapalel, maybe what he's going to do is he'll forget and he won't daven. V'afil b'chol nami, even during the weekday. V'hai tani dahacha, mishum tedamile tetani gava lo yatsa achayim. And that's also a reason. He gives another reason why. Later on it says that a tailor shouldn't go out with a needle in his hat and so on and so forth, because you may forget, and then you'll walk out when it's dark. And it's Shabbos, and you'll be carrying. But here we say, any day, I should not go to the barber when it's close to mincha. Now the question is, what mincha are we talking about? Are we talking about mincha katana? Are we talking about mincha gedola? In other words, we're talking about the mincha gedola would be the earliest time we can daven mincha, 1:15, or whatever it is in this area.
Here in South Bend.
It's South Bend. I'm saying here, most places would be like 12:30 right now. Yeah. But or is it going to be mincha katana, which would be 9.5 hours, 9.5 halachic hours into it? So let's, just for argument's sake, say around 4:00. Yeah. Okay, yeah. And there I have about 75 halachic minutes left. And so then what happened? Now that's one thing. One, I could forget. The other thing and again, you have to go back to the old days when they didn't have so many different scissors and clippers, that the scissor could bust. and then they would have to get a new scissor in the middle of your haircut. You're taking your time. It also used to be that haircuts did not take 10 minutes or 15, whatever. It used to take an hour. You would sit down. It's like when you go, again, you have to picture this. You have one person doing it. He's talking to you. Normally a barber talks to you. That's where you get all the gossip. And you're talking about the stars and everything else. He has nothing else to do but to cut your hair. And you have to just listen to him. It's like going to a dentist. Okay. They say what they want to say. Then what happens is, but like I said, it normally used to be a long process. Now, again, it's 10 minutes. You can walk in, it's express haircuts. But it wasn't that way originally. So, and then if you had a waiting line, there was also something. That's why they were saying you shouldn't go, okay? And then it's, so that's really what we need to know. Now it says, so now the Gemara says, when is the beginning of a haircut? Interesting question, right? When's the beginning of the haircut? So now you turn the page. Right? I don't think he says anything that we have to know. No.
Here mine says parenthetically, so that you don't have to interrupt to pray.
Okay. Well, you're right. It's based upon
the implication.
Correct. That's the implication. So Amar Rav Avin. Rav Avin said, Mishianiach ma'afort shel savarin al birkav. When the barber's cloth, when one puts on the barber's cloth on his lap. And why are you putting the barber's cloth on the lap?
You don't get the hair on.
To cut, correct.
Same thing they do today.
The same reason, nothing has changed. In 2,000 years, we still take this haircut the same way. We want to protect ourselves from falling hair that's coming on. We don't want to have to go like this all day long. Yeah. Okay, fine. And it also, you don't want to scratch because of the hair coming on you. So you, because what happens when anybody's got a haircut, they know they're always going just the whole day. That's why I think in Borix and these other places, unlike the old barbers, but the new barbers always are like Smart Style. They have the sink, so they offer to wash your hair. Before, for them is I wash your hair because it makes it easier to cut. But if you play it right, you say, can you wash my hair after my haircut? Because then you walk out, it's beautiful. They did your hair, there's no hair left, and you can go back to work.
They use that little brush on their back here.
They used to, but now they're getting cheap with everything. They don't do anything anymore. There used to be a lot of things they used to do, but it's like when people used to pump your gas. They used to clean your windshield. That's all gone today. There's no such thing. Okay, so that so that was number one. We asked, when is the haircut, right? And again, in the Mishnah, it was. I'll just go through really quickly the Mishnah because it gives the whole background to the Gemara. So one was you couldn't sit before mincha. Then the other one was lo yikanes adam mirchas. A person should not go to the. Again, this is what we're hitting on here. A man should not go into the bathhouse, lo borski, nor to the. The Borsky was a leather thing. What was it? The Borsky was. Go back to the Mishnah here. The Borsky was tannery. Lo lechol nor me'id lo ledin nor he judge the case if he began any of these in masfikim, he doesn't have to interrupt it. Mafsikin likrot, but one has to interrupt his activity for the recitation of Shema because that is deraisa. That's from the Torah. V'em mafsikin letfila, but one does not have to interrupt for saying Shema Esrei because that is derabanan. Okay, that's from the rabbi. So now again back to this Gemara. It says. So when is, when is the beginning of the session at the bathhouse? When we say the bathhouse, we're really talking about the schwitzbath. What do you call it? The sauna. Sauna, right? Thank you. So Amar Rav Avin Mishiara Me'afarto Hemana, when one removes his cloth. And what is that? His headgear, which is the first garment one removes when disrobing. Alternatively, his undergarment. So you have two ways to look at this. Either way is going to be either the headcloth or some other thing. The bottom line is when you're getting ready, that's when it's the beginning. And remember, if it's the beginning and you don't have to stop. I already got to that point. The guy puts the cloth over you in the haircut, you don't have to stop, right? Even if you're going to miss mincha. That'll be interesting why they're allowing you to miss mincha at that point, just because you started something illegally. But that would also be a question. Now, when's the beginning of the session at the tannery? When one ties his sleeves between the shoulders. What's going on there? He slips his arms out of his sleeves and ties the sleeves behind his back. That's putting the apron on, and so that he is ready to go to work. Fine. When is the beginning of the meal? Rav Amar Mishitol Yadav. So Rav said when he washes his hands, that's the beginning of the meal. Rav Chanina Amar, he said he disagreed. He says Mishiyatir Chagora, when one unfastens his belt. Why does he unfasten his belt?
To sit down and eat more comfortably.
Right. Correct. That is exactly what he's doing it for. And he says, "Velo pligi," and really there's no disagreement here. Hailan, Rabbi Chanina's statement applies to us, the community in Babylonia. Vahai lehu, while Rav's statement applies to the people in Eretz Yisrael. Yeah.
Why is it taking on these instances in particular of the barbershop, the tannery, the eating?
I mean, why did the Mishnah pick on that?
Yeah, why did they choose those? Is there a reason, or is it just things people do?
Because they would take a long time.
Right, but like you could also pick something like farming.
No, farming is farming wasn't a hobby. It wasn't a choice. There was work. This I'm going to get a haircut. This I'm going for my enjoyment. I'm going to the sauna, or I'm going to the tannery for some reason. I'm not. It may not be my profession. Tannery is one I'm not sure, because it could be. I'm saying it could be a profession on that.
That
one.
sounds like you're going to work.
It could be. It could be, but the other two certainly are not.
Yeah.
These are all discretionary.
Right.
Uses of your time.
It seems I'm saying it seems that even tannery would be
So maybe because there's an involvement in something that once you start that process, you just can't just stop.
It would normally take a long time, and that's why they pick on eating, and you can't judge. But if you start, you don't interrupt.
So tanning must be that. I mean,
Right. It could be. Again, I'm not sure about tannery.
Process. You got a piece of leather, whatever it is, and you have to complete it.
They take a long time.
If you walk away from it,
Correct.
it would become no good or something.
Correct.
Why not?
Again, unlike farming, which again is if I start plowing the field, I can always look. I'm not going to finish the field in one shot anyway, right? Farmers were never just dull by dull. There was never just a small section.
Thing, yeah.
Right. So you have that in mind to have to daven mincha. So that's what you're going to do. If I'm going to go to a job, so I have to figure out when I'm going to daven mincha, or whatever I'm going to do. But when I have something else where it's going to take a while and it's not part of my day, it's not normally part of my day, so then I have to figure out what I should do first. By the way, this becomes a very important thing. Let's say you are going to work, right? You're working and wherever you are, you're going to be in a job, unless you own if you own your own place, by the way. So it's still something you have to do. So now it comes to the quote-unquote lunch hour. Well, when do you make your lunch hour? Do you make your lunch hour when it's right before mincha? Do I make it right before mincha? And what do I do? Let's assume that it's right with mincha. What do you do first? You're not going to go to shul. You're not getting out for shul. So now what do? Where do you daven? Do you first eat and then daven? The answer is no. First I daven, then I eat. Because if I daven, if I eat, I may run out of time. When I'm davening, I won't run out of time to eat, believe me. Nobody's davens that long that they wouldn't have time to eat. And if they do, okay, so fine. I mean, I can't imagine somebody's going to daven for a half hour.
I mean, I've heard guys talk about it in their office before they delay mincha because I got all afternoon. And then the phone rings, they're eating the lunch, and the phone rings, and then they get called off to a meeting and get distracted by the
Right.
It's like this.
Correct. So that's why all these things that the Mishnah is saying, since they're, as Bill said, discretionary, I have to make a decision on what I want. So I have to first daven mincha, and then if it's close to mincha or whatever it's going to be, mincha. Mincha is the one we never worry about shacharis. We don't worry about the morning. We don't worry about night. The reason we don't worry about morning is because we're waking up. We know we have to daven, so we go before work. We're not going to go to the haircut that early. We're not going to do any of these discretionary things that early. Certainly nobody's going to start asking us to rule on Jewish law that early. We're going to daven first. When it comes to Marav I can have the whole night. So, yes, I should do it as soon as possible, but nevertheless I have the entire night, so the odds are I'm going to do that. Comes to Mincha, Mincha flies.
Yeah.
You have a very limited time. And let's say right now you're starting at 1:15. It ends at 5:15, whatever it's going to be.
Oh, that's like 4 hour time.
It's right.
Yeah.
So now, and it's right in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
So, and I have things to do, and the telephone's to do. Again, telephone's ringing. I have so much to do in those hours that I don't even have time to take a nap. Okay, so, so now the question is, when to begin the meal? So again, so we already said that was either when washing the hands, according to Rav, or Rav Chanina said when you untie your belt, and the Gemara says no. The reason Rav Chanina said untie your belt is that was for the community in Bavel, and Rav, who said wash your hands, that was applying to the community in Israel. So they explain. The people of Babylonia would gird themselves tightly. Hence, before eating, they would open their belts. They would do this before they washed their hands. The people of Eretz Israel, however, did not open the belts before washing their hands. Thus, Rabbi Chanina, who lived in Eretz Israel, taught his ruling to those students who were from Bavel. Okay, and Rav, who resided in Bavel, taught his ruling to those students from Eretz Israel. It was the common practice of students to study abroad so as to avoid the distractions of their homes. This is the first yeshiva. This is the first time when we're seeing the root of why we send our boys away. Chas v'sholom, have the distraction of their homes.
Why was the Babylonian thing to gird your belt tightly before lunch?
They always wore their belts tightly.
Day.
It was a fashion.
Oh,
Yeah, you can ask on fashion all you want, but you're never going to get a good answer.
okay. I thought it was like a religious thing.
No, it's
Or if it was all the Babylonians.
no. There was the Babylonians. They decided to show off their muscles, I guess. I mean, it's like, why do women wear girdles? Because they're fat, and they want to hold it in. Men used to also wear girdles at one point, but it's I don't know what they call them. It was also a male girdle. As a matter of fact, if somebody has an operation, the what do they call it? The
Liposuction?
no. Hernia operation. So one of the things they'll tell the guy, I guess they would tell women too. I don't know if women get that sort of hernia, but when you get that hernia, so they always tell them you should put on a girdle, whatever they call that. Again, a male girdle, whatever they call it, to protect you, so it doesn't rip again. And you do wear that for a couple of weeks, whatever it's going to be. So what it does is holds everything in place. That's really what it came to. So all the corsets, all these things were just made to make us look skinnier than we really were. Now, interesting enough, if you go to the Middle Ages, I think it was the Middle Ages, then it was, if you were not fat, if you were skinny, it was a sign of being poor, and a sign of being rich was to be fat. So you really wanted to be fat in those days. So it's a Victoria. I think in Victorian times.
In times of famine, it's good to look plump.
Right. So, but I'm just saying it was an interesting thing that at times I would be in fashion and times I'm not.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's changed a lot.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
both of these two sections fit together real well. And that's, like time management. You have to prioritize what's most important in your
Okay.
life. And when you're reading Torah, to stay in the section that you're
Right.
studying, that's discipline
Correct.
and using your time wisely, not a bunch of frivolous questions. And when you have an important engagement like going to Mincha,
Right.
you have to put other things aside. You find other times for that. You
Correct.
manage that time.
Correct. There and also, and now, and again, then you have to know when it's beginning. In other words, by the way, if I go to the haircut situation, when does my haircut begin? When I walk into when I put my name down for the appointment? Or is it when I sit in the chair? When does it begin?
Yeah.
In other words, if somebody, and what the difference would be is, I went to a meeting. Went to a meeting recently, and so as I walked in, they said, "Which meeting are you coming for?" I said, "What?" So they said, "Well, they're about to have mincha." I said, "The other meeting will wait." I went to mincha, and I have a mincha, and so I came in late to the meeting. And nobody asked me word one of where I was because they had been told that I went to mincha. Nobody said anything to me, and why didn't you come right to the meeting? Because I would have told them what's more important, this or the other. They would have got the
A
answer.
silent statement.
That was it. Leave me alone. I'm going to go to mincha first, because who knows how long this meeting is going to take. You don't know how long the meeting will take. It can take 15 minutes. It could take an hour. It takes 2 hours. When people start talking, people love Jews. I don't know about non-Jews, but Jews love meetings. Make a meeting. Oh, they're in seventh heaven. Do non-Jews have the same thing?
Oh, they love to be heard.
Okay, there you go. Meetings are the bane of existence, because how much gets accomplished. It's like when you have a board meeting. People love board meetings. I remember my father when he was saying, I don't know if he was saying Kaddish at that point, but certainly we were at Minyan, and we had 9 guys. So he went into the board meeting and he said, "Gentlemen, we need," and you remember, we only counted men in those days in the conservative movement. They only, at the shul I was, they only counted men. Yep. So he said, "Gentlemen, we need one more person for the minyan." So they said, "No, I'm sorry, we can't come. We're at a very important meeting. This is a board meeting, executive board meeting. Excuse me." So he said, "I don't understand, but we need a minyan. We need one person. People have Kaddish." He said, "You don't understand. We have to be here. We have to make sure the building's open." He said, "What do you have the building for if you don't have a minyan?" So he said, "The minyan is for you. We have to keep the building open for you. We can't come." Mm-hmm. And they left it at that. We can't come, and they didn't come. Okay, the Rishaim of the world, but they didn't want to come. And that was what we say. When you have a meeting, you have to put into the equation minyan and everything else. By the way, I have to say the opposite. When I was the rabbi of in Moncton, and they had a meeting going on, I needed one person, and so that I went and I said to the board meeting, mirroring my father many years later, and I said, "Gentlemen, I'm sorry to interrupt the meeting, but we need one more person for minyan." So yes, I did get one person to say, "Rabbi, we're in the meeting," and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're too busy for God," and I walked out, and as I walked out, I heard and I announced to the minyan who was there, "They're too busy to come to minyan." I was not a happy camper when I said that. I was very upset, and I said, "They're too busy to come to minyan. The board meeting is too busy." They all marched in, except for one person who said they wouldn't march in, and the woman who wasn't counted anyway. So, but 9 people, whatever it was, they walked in and they said, "Rabbi, we're always going to come from India. Don't worry about it." That was the difference between the Orthodox and the conservative at that point. But I was very happy to see that they all came, and we all davened mincha. But that was the point. You don't start something if you can't get to mincha in, or whatever the religious service is going to be. Okay? Now we go to page 10A1. See, I marked everything down so you wouldn't have to figure this out. Okay, and we are at, I believe it's the top, right? I have to see. Because right here is Rabba Babrahuna. Rabba Babrahuna Raze. Where is it? Yeah. So it's right. It says God. The Gemara reports several examples of how the sage is dressed for prayer.
Oh, John,
Okay, you got it? Good. Okay. So Rabba bar Rav Huna, the son of Rav Huna, Rame Puzmeke Matzale. He would don fine footwear and daven. And he would say, Amar, he said, explaining this practice, he called the krot. It says, prepare to meet your God, O Israel. We have, and he says from here, it seems that one should not pray barefoot, except on Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, where wearing leather shoes is prohibited. However, this restriction applies only where the local protocol is not to appear barefoot before eminent people. Okay, so once again, why do you pick on eminent people? That's the Shulchan Aruch and Mishnah Berurah. However we are going to go for the job interview is how we should go to daven. Okay, if I'm going to go to a job interview, or my job for that matter, with a tie, it's not befitting to give God any less, to accord God any less honor. So again, if I'm going to wear a suit and a tie, it would only make sense that when I go to a minyan, I should wear a suit and a tie. That's why when I was going to a meeting, and I knew I was going to be wearing a suit and a tie, I came in here dressed to kill. Right? I didn't come to daven with my normal attire. I came with this, like I was going to the meeting already. Instead of having to go and change, which I could have done too, but I went appropriately, because if I'm going to go to them, so why shouldn't I? If I'm showing man honor, why shouldn't I show God honor? Mm-hmm. So that's what he's saying. He called the krot, prepare to meet your God, Israel. Okay, so however we're going to do that. Now, obviously, the other example, what's the matter? Right, well, exactly. Now, the other side of that is, let's say I'm going to work as a plumber. Okay? As a plumber, I'm not going to be wearing a shirt, a jacket, and a tie. I'm just not. It's not a smart thing to do as a plumber or as a meat cutter or anything else. It's just not smart, because you're going to get filthy. So now, if that's the case, can I walk in with my clothes from work too? Some people say no, some people say yes. Okay, and there are some people say, well, I'm dressing like I would for work. It has to be clean clothes. So you should, again, if I'm let's say I'm a dog. Well, no, let's stick with the meat cutter. If I'm the meat cutter and I have blood on me from the meat, obviously I shouldn't come in with dirty clothes. I shouldn't come into work with dirty clothes either, though. So, okay, if you get dirty on the job, it's something else. But you're not going to come to work, hopefully, with dirty clothes. As a matter of fact, if you look at any of these commercials on TV, or the web these days, since who watches TV, there's everything on the web, you'll see commercials, and that's the sad thing about the web. Used to be we used to watch TV on the web to escape the commercials. Yeah. Now you can't escape anything. They found a way to give commercials on the web. Okay, even on video games now get commercials. It's unbelievable how commercials got everywhere. Anyway, what happened was I was noticing there was an ad for some restaurant. Okay, I don't know what the restaurant was. And you see, they show the chefs in the kitchen, and they're all impeccably dressed. And I was thinking, what a fake thing that is. It's impossible when you're in a kitchen cooking to maintain no stain on your uniform. It's ridiculous. I've been in enough kitchens to know that just doesn't happen. But of course, for the performance, you're going to do that. If you ever go into a bar or bat mitzvah, a wedding where the cook is outside and cutting the roast, they have all the pristine white, beautiful stuff. They had to change from the kitchen to that place to come in with that. It's not normal.
So somebody works in a job like that where you're getting dirty as part of the job, whatever it is. What about when you come to minyan? Let's say you're coming to mincha after work, or you're coming in the morning. Even you're still wearing your work clothes. Maybe you haven't really got filthy yet. A lot of people will specifically bring a jacket with them that they use only for going to daven.
Correct. Yeah. I'm saying
that would be part of it.
That would be part of showing. prepare to meet your maker, as you put it. Prepare to meet your maker. You're going to God, so show God derech eretz. Show Hashem that you really care about Him, and the way to do that is to dress appropriately. Again, when I'm walking into my job, I'm not going to walk in with dirty clothes. If I do, the owner is going to say, change. Don't come to work dirty. Again, if you get dirty during the job, it's part of the job. I understand that, but don't come in dirty. That's not nice and not respectful for the job. And when you go on the floor, again, if you're in the restaurant business, when you go onto the floor, you can't come out dirty. You have to come out in a pristine state. What? Floor is outside the kitchen, yes. Very good. That was what we call deductive reasoning. Okay. Very good. So now, another thing is, Rava, so Rava would cast off his cloak, clasp his hands, and daven. Amar, and what was his reason? Ka'avda kame mare. He said that one should appear during prayer like a servant before his master. So what does that mean? He would remove his cloak to avoid appearing as a man of prestige. Okay? He would also grasp one hand with the other in the manner of a person standing in trepidation before his master. Azoi, like this. Okay? That's how we would do. For those who don't know Azoi, this is not that. Like this. This is Christians praying, right? But it's like this. Because this is how you approach it. You don't go like this to your master. You go like this.
No, like in all the cartoons, like when
Tom and Jerry?
Tom and Jerry, like when Tom is apologizing to the owner of the house, he's like on his knees, like scooting.
Yes. Okay, that's true also. But that's because of the Christians. As a matter of fact, if you go to what's it called, Messenger on the phones, and you speak into it, or you put please, it'll give you like this. The symbol, what's it called? The emoji. The emoji will be this. Yeah. And I always think, wow, it's so interesting how certain things have crept into the situation. Yeah, and not the situation, the dialogues. Okay, so anyway, the main point is that one should position his hands during prayer in the same way as people from that locale would when appearing before a king or some or other such eminent person. Thus, the correct demeanor during the prayer varies in accordance with local protocol. Okay, so again, you're having that sort of concept. By the way, when people go like this, okay, the question is, would you do that to the person that you're addressing? When you use your hand motion, when you like this, all the different hand motions, is that how you really would go before your master and asking, or is it you going before your friend and asking? Who you shaking your hands at? And that's something else that, again, people do it because they get into the prayer, not picking on the individual hand movements. But really the question becomes, who do you think you're talking to?
Because just like you're talking to yourself.
No, when you're saying, please, you got to do this. Is that how you would speak to a master or your boss? I don't know. Maybe it would be. And if it is, right. So that's what this Gemara is presenting to us. Start thinking about how I'm dressing. Again, do I always dress like this? If I always dress like this, certainly I should dress like this for the king. If I don't always dress like this, I don't have a tie on. But if I always wear a tie, so I should wear a tie for davening and a jacket. If I never wear a jacket and a tie, should I wear a jacket and a tie? Shouldn't I wear a jacket and a tie? Again, who am I going before? Who am I trying to impress, as it were? God knows who I am. So now, does it mean that since God knows who I am and sees me to be, without clothes, that I should walk without clothes too? No, obviously not. I think we can all agree that we should come clothed when we're davening to Hashem. I hope we all agree on that, okay? But then it matters, I'm on the beach, a single-sex beach. Does it mean we all get together in our skivvies and our bathing suits and daven mincha? I think we'd all, again, would say no. I think we'd all agree to that. I hope we'd all agree to that we shouldn't only come with our underwear, basically, and daven in front of Hashem. I think we'd all agree that we should put on a shirt, that we should put on long pants. Unless you're an Israeli, then you put on white pants, white shorts, whatever the case is going to be. I think we'd all agree that there has to be some semblance of, I'm dressing God, and therefore I have to dress appropriately for that sort of an event. And really, there is no excuse. Even those who are at home, who are sick, will usually put a bathrobe on before davening. They can't get dressed. They'll put a bathrobe on. They'll put something on to show, look, I can't do everything, but I'm going to try to do something for you. All because of, it's an honor to Hashem. We have to give to Hashem. That's really what's coming out of this. Okay, so if I'm going to use hand movements, so I should be like a servant. If the servant's like this, or if, as you said, maybe the servant is like this. If the servant is like this, maybe that's what you would do. Okay, or if it's like this. Whatever the case, whatever the hand movements are going to be. Or, by the way, Germans, no, they used to say that Germans don't even shackle. They don't even shake back and forth. Why? Because when you're in front of a king, you don't shake back and forth. You're standing there at attention. So Germans, again, I've seen the exact opposite. But when I was in Breyers, I saw people shackling. But I heard originally the Germans didn't move. They would stand at attention, total attention.
You can make that case. So, I mean, would you go before any king in the world or the president of the United States and stand there, please, I'm going to talk to you? Like what would you? You wouldn't do that.
Correct. So as a result, people didn't. That's what I'm saying. Some people went that far. The reason people do shackle is because. You understand shackle, yeah, okay. The reason people do shackle is because they say that the neshama the soul is like a flame, and as the flame flickers to get higher and higher and higher. So also,
what about there's a
so it's from Tehillim.
There's a pasuk somewhere.
Tehillim.
All my bones, yeah.
Yeah, Tehillim. It's from Tehillim, right? So it's from Psalms. But that is so. There's a couple of reasons why people do shackle.
Yeah.
It's for concentration. It's a whole bunch of things.
But then there's the funny story about that too. Before there was printed books.
Go ahead.
So everybody's standing around the table reading from the same scroll, and the first guy bends over, looks at the next guy bends over.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay.
So it became up and down, up and down.
Right. That's just a cute story. It's not true. Okay. So now it says, Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi said, Chazina leid to Rav Kahana. I observed the Rav Kahana would behave as follows. Ki ikat sa'ara ba'alma. When there was suffering in the world, Shadei, Galime, Ufachar, Yadei, Yadei Umasle. What's the matter? You got lost? You have it, no? You have Rav Ashi or not?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, when he observed, Rav Ashi observed Rav Kahana saying that when there was suffering in the world, he would cast off his cloak, clasp his hands, and daven. Amar ka'avda kamei. He said in explanation, one must appear during prayer like a servant before his master. Ki ika shlama. But when there was peace in the world, lavesh mikase mitate from matzle, he would dress, cover, and wrap himself, and then daven. Amar, he called like Kratcha Elokem Yisrael, Elokech Yisrael. He said an explanation, prepare to meet your God, O Israel. So again, it depends on what was the situation. In times of peace, not only did he not clasp his hands together, but he even wore more elegant garments. When all is going well for a servant, he should appear before his master decked out in his finery as a matter of respect. But when he wishes to ask his master to relieve him of suffering, it is appropriate for him to appear without his finery in order to show his distress. So again, it all depends on how we are addressing God at that particular moment. Okay, I just wanted to go a little further. So Rav Chazia, the Rav Hamnuna, Daikai Marich, Bitzlote Rav once observed Rav Hamnuna prolonged his prayers. Amar, Rav explained, does one forsake the pursuit of eternal life and occupy himself instead with the concerns of a transitory life? And he said, the study of Torah explains, For the Maharshal, the study of Torah brings one to the eternal life of the world to come. The purpose of prayer, however, is to request what one needs in this world, such as health, peace, and livelihood. Rava holds that if one interrupted his studies in order to pray, although he is required to do so, he should not prolong his prayer at the expense of his studies. Okay? In other words, okay, you're going to daven, but what do you have to say already? Get it over with. You have 5 minutes, you have 10 minutes. Let's go back to learning. Let's go back to what gets us to the next world. What are you davening? You need money so much. You're davening to Hashem. You need it. Okay, other people, by the way. Now, let's understand something. We daven today an amazing speech. They used to daven for an hour. Remember, Chassidim, Rishonim, according to Gemara, they daven for 9 hours a day. So when you're learning already, so Rav is, now, by the time Rav is coming around, there's no more Chassidim Rishonim, there's no more of these original pious people, and everybody's davening at a decent pace. So let's say they're going for 15 minutes. Okay, so whatever the time limit would be, when you're going over that, it's too much. So they said, what are you doing? So but he maintains, the Gemara explains Rav Hamnuna, and he said, he maintains, Zaman Tefillah L'chud, Zaman Torah L'chud, that the time for prayer is separate from the time of studying Torah. Rav Hamnuna maintains that the obligation to study Torah does not apply when one is engaged in Torah. Therefore, time spent in extra prayer does not infringe on one's fulfillment of the obligation to study Torah. So you say, what are you doing? There's nothing wrong with it. Everything has its time. Everything's within its border. And related, and then you have Rav Yirmiyah Ahavi Yativ Kamed Rav Zera. So Rav Yirmiyah was sitting before Rav Zera, Vahavi Aske B'Shmaita, and they were involved in a halachic discussion. Negage it was becoming late to pray. Vahavi Kai Misarehev Rav Yirmiyah, and Rav Yirmiyah hastened to stand up. Kreale Rav Zera. Rav Zera applied the following verse to him: Meisir Azno Mishma Torah v'gam tefillah tueva. One who turns his ear away from listening to Torah, his prayer is as well as loathsome. In other words, you rejected the Torah, which is for prayer. Remember, in that mindset, study is more important. Why is study more important? Because it's what brings you to understanding of Hashem. And that's going to make you appreciate Hashem more. Of course, you're going to daven better. So why would you leave one to the other? It's not worthwhile. So they explain. The Rav Zer is interpreting the verse as follows: one who turns his ear from listening to Torah, even for the sake of prayer, is loathsome. Rav Zer's rebuke applies only to someone like Rav Yirmiyah, whose sole occupation is the study of Torah. The Gemara below states that such scholars do not interrupt their studies even for prayer. Everyone else, however, is required to interrupt their studying in order to avoid missing the time for prayer. So we're seeing a lot of very interesting stuff just from the beginning here, how important prayer is and how we shouldn't interrupt somebody or ask questions when they're not in that matter. And we really have to, and how to address our prayers, how we should dress for success in prayer. And when we're learning, do we interrupt? Don't we interrupt? The answer is today we all do, because our sole occupation is not Torah, but we still have to. But when we're studying, we should have in mind that to break for Tefillah too, we have to set everything up, which is why when you go to Daf Hayomi or any one of those classes, it's always right before the service. It leads you into service, so it gives you a way to ready yourself to daven to Hashem, the appreciation that we all have to have. We'll have to stop there.